Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 521, The Spiritual Disease of Deception, Part 1, The Path to Defeating the Most Pervasive Degree of Lawlessness. The podcast objectives are reveal how deception alters the truth, analyze the connection between the truth and Yahuwah's will, analyze how our minds receive the will of Elohim, and analyze how our hearts receive the will of Elohim. Welcome. Now, before we begin today's lesson, I would like to welcome all my beloved brothers and sisters in Yahushua Messiah who have been scattered to the four corners of the earth, who Yahuwah has joined to this ministry for such a time as this. I would also like to welcome anyone who is engaging our podcasts or videos for the first time. We trust you were led by the set apart spirit in finding us. And if you continue to be led, we hope you stay with us, for these are troubling times and an evil day is just ahead. To this end, if you are watching this video on YouTube and you have not subscribed to our channel, click the subscribe button below and you will be alerted whenever we post new videos. Also, if you have any questions at the conclusion of this video, you can ask them using the link in the podcast description below the video player. Last but not least, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up so YouTube can share it with believers like us. The Sleight of Truth. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 458 of our exposition of lawlessness. In the most recent podcast, we began analyzing the deadliest and the most pervasive degree of lawlessness. Enter deception. Now, we concluded that podcast with what I believe may be the most critical revelation I have shared in this podcast ministry. And so I will begin this podcast with a summary of that revelation. While ignorance causes you to ignore the truth in the spirit of disregard, deception works in the background to alter the truth. Ergo, the next time you are confronted with the truth, you won't recognize it as the truth. Quite the contrary, your version of truth is now a modified version that reflects Satan's reality. And it all started because you refused to embrace the truth in the beginning when your eyes could clearly see. Now, before we begin analyzing deception and how he pulls off this sleight of truth, I ask you once again to stop the process before he gets started. To wit, don't disregard the truth just because it is inconvenient for the moment. Trust me, even though there is momentary convenience in disregarding the truth, the former cannot be compared to the permanent inconvenience of endless death. Not only this, but you should also reconsider how disregard leads to error. And this, my friends, is why the success rate of the 1-2 punch of ignorance and deception is 100%. It is for the following reason. which I advise you to bookmark and to share as you are led. By infecting you with error, ignorance will dictate what you believe. For the man who is in error concerning the truth will always be deceived. No doubt, this is why many deny the truth. It's because they don't recognize the truth. And although deception is the door that leads to endless death, ignorance is the key. So take my advice and throw away the key. Believe me, this warning will become real to you as we execute this series on deception. For, like all the degrees of lawlessness, there is more to deception than any of us could ever realize. And thus, I ask that you, O Most High, would reveal to us everything we need to know to guard our hearts and our minds from the infiltration of deception and the acquisition of many lies. Let's get started. If the truth is hidden. Now, as it is my custom, I will begin this analysis by providing a definition for deception to ensure we are considering this degree of lawlessness from a uniform spiritual perspective. Deception is the act of concealing the truth, especially to get an advantage. Dishonest or unlawful methods that are used to obtain something or to make someone believe something is true when it is not true. A trick. Now, in considering this definition of deception, it should be even clearer to see how it feeds off the spirit of ignorance. To wit, it is immensely easier to deceive someone who is already being plagued by ignorance. We know this because deception can only occur if the truth is hidden. That's the key, my friends, and a key matter you must always remember. Get this. It is impossible to fall into deception if you are wearing the girdle of truth. For the enemy cannot hide the truth from you if you have been girded with the truth. Here again, this is why the girdle of truth is the primary feature of the whole armor of Elohim. And it is why I made it very clear that anyone who is not wearing the girdle of truth will never receive the knowledge of Elohim, and thus they will not succeed this phase. Now, even though this is a sure matter, I'm not asking you to take my word for it. Quite the contrary, I advise you to search the scriptures and see for yourself. There is infinite value in truth, which is why the enemy constantly attacks it. As I told you beforehand, if you pay attention, the enemy will always show you his crooked hand. To wit, there is a reason why the 16 deadliest degrees of lawlessness are designed to attack the truth. It is for the following reason, which you should know by now. The girdle of truth converts our beliefs into knowledge. Ergo, if the enemy can succeed in his attacks against the truth, he will prevent us from receiving knowledge of the will of Elohim. Now, although the will of Elohim is the foundation of scriptural theology and one of the most popular topics in the religious circuit, it is persistently devalued and misunderstood, which is in large part due to the work of deception. Ergo, I will use the sword of the Ruach to combat the misunderstanding and devaluation of the enemy with the following treasure box. The will of Elohim contains all the requirements upon our salvation. Ergo, our salvation lies squarely upon our mastery of Yahuwah's will. Okay, so that defeats the deception that Yahuwah's will is optional or unimportant. But it doesn't address the deception that has caused Yahuwah's will to be misunderstood. And so we should talk about it. The only mind that can receive Yahuwah's will. Now, it should be clear that all the misunderstanding concerning Yahuwah's will is being driven by deception, for the simple but sure fact that deception is designed to hide the truth. And where there is no truth, there can be no knowledge. That said, the question we should chiefly entertain is this: how do you obtain knowledge of Yahuwah's will? To wit, what are the primary requirements? The answer is sure, and we analyze them for the full duration of phase one. Vis-a-vis, you must have a regulated mind and a regulated heart, which requires you to unlock the powers of faith, obedience, virtue, and the fear of Elohim. And in unlocking these powers, you will eliminate doubt, disobedience, contempt, and prejudice. Now, I'm not going to rehash the significance of this major milestone, but I want to show you how a regulated mind is the only mind that can receive Yahuwah's will. Likewise, I will show you how a regulated heart is the only heart that can do the same. Let's get to work. Beginning with the mind, the complexity of Yahuwah's will is sure. Vis-a-vis, the first and only factor of his will your mind receives is conceptual. To wit, Yahuwah communicates his vision to you in concept. This provides you with a basic understanding of his will in concept. From there, the conceptual vision of his will is stored in the execution zone of your spiritual mind, as you can see by the image to the right. Now, as you have learned in prior podcasts, this zone of execution retains a basic construct of Yahuwah's will that governs the generation of every thought within your mind. Notwithstanding, as powerful as this is, the conceptual vision is not a complete puzzle. Quite the contrary, you are missing several factors. Vis-a-vis, you are missing the analytical, i.e., the reason behind Yahuwah's will, the procedural, i.e., how Yahuwah's will should come to pass, and the sequential, i.e., when the various facets of Yahuwah's will should come to pass. You are missing others, but those are the main three. Now, I will show you the power of a regulated mind and how it allows you to achieve a comprehensive understanding of Yahuwah's will. By safeguarding your mind with obedience and faith, your lack of knowledge concerning the factors of Yahuwah's will that you do not possess will not be an issue. Quite the contrary, your lack of knowledge will only make you stronger, specifically in every degree of obedience and faith. For example, hope, trust, and reliance. On the other hand, those who have not eliminated doubt and disobedience from their minds will not get stronger. Quite the contrary, they will get weaker. For despair, distrust, and self-reliance will cause them to abandon Yahuwah's will altogether. And as you will see in a future podcast, this is one of many intervals where deception will come bursting onto the scene with one primary goal. Again, we will analyze this matter in a future podcast. guardians of the truth. This brings us to the heart. And as you very well know by now, there is much more at stake in regulating your heart than your mind, for the simple but sure fact that there can be no regulated heart where there is no regulated mind. Along these lines, your mind will generate informed thoughts that are aligned with Yahuwah's will for your life, and it will pass these thoughts into your heart. Upon entering your heart, these thoughts will purify the thoughts within your heart with the most current, i.e., accurate interpretation of Yahuwah's will, i.e., the truth. And because your heart is regulated, it will not resist the truth, no matter how difficult the truth may be. Just look at the image to the right. This is a diagram of a regulated heart. Here you will find honesty, righteousness, purity, values, and other features that serve as guardians of the truth. This is crucial because deception does not need for your heart to be filled with contempt, prejudice, and scores of bad actors to hide the truth from you. Quite the contrary, all he needs is one. Ideally, he would look to team up with dishonesty. But alas, dishonesty cannot be found. She is nowhere in sight. Ergo, your heart will have the power to receive the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And thus, you will always know what is right. My dear friends, by having a regulated heart, being governed by a regulated mind, you will be positioned to receive the will of Elohim. From there, you will make good decisions that are aligned with his will. And as good decisions result in good intentions, your actions will consistently be aligned with Yahuwah's will. Now, that's the way things are supposed to work, how they will work if you follow the linear model of holiness. But alas, the majority within this nation aren't following the linear model of holiness. Ergo, their hearts and their minds are not regulated. Now, we analyze the perils of deregulation in phase 1, but we are now in phase 2, and the stakes are much higher. And thus, the following is true. If your mind and your heart are not regulated, deception will do more damage to them than all the degrees of lawlessness we have analyzed in phase 1 combined. My dear friends, hear me carefully as I say, this is huge. Remember, we analyzed 16 degrees of lawlessness in phase 1, and we came to see how the majority in this nation have never reigned over these 16 degrees, and many have never reigned over 8. And if that isn't bad enough, we are analyzing a degree that can do more damage than those 16 degrees combined. And as amazing as that sounds, I guarantee you it is true. And you will see why as we analyze how deception takes deregulation to an unprecedented level. That said, I beseech you, by the mercies of Elohim, give all diligence to guard your heart and your mind. For the moment either is corrupted, deception will spring onto the scene, for another war within your members has erupted. Now, here is the final word. The time had come to heed again, and as they tired to refrain, they tasted poison and desire and found themselves again with pain. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, any war you fight with lawlessness is always more difficult the second time around, which is why I placed such a huge emphasis and premium on reigning over lawlessness. My dear friends, listen to me. If you allow deception to reignite a war you have already won, introducing new factors Yahuwah never wanted you to face, you are flirting with disaster and a deadly fall from grace. Heretofore, I recommend stop the process before he gets started, or you will surely find a grave with all the departed who lost their hearts and their minds. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on today's lesson. And if you have any questions, please submit them using the form at pinnacleofholiness.com. And I will respond to you as soon as I can. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 521, The Spiritual Disease of Deception, Part 1. And the next podcast is entitled The United Nation of Israel, Part 1. I will post this podcast on Friday, October 3rd, 2025. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch. Continue to pray. Continue in fasting. And most of all, continue to be focused. For the end is coming. The end is near.